Wow. What a picture. To think it's 16 years ago. How did you get involved?
So I originally had an off-Broadway theater house in New York, and we did different kinds of things. We would adapt Kafka, we would do a Hank Williams biography, and somehow this script arrived at my desk, which was selling out in northern Massachusetts. You couldn't get a ticket for 5 months or something. And I saw it was about Golda Meir. And having been someone who spent his boyhood in Israel, a couple of years there with my parents, I read the play. It blew me away. I was still being given scripts to move things to Manhattan, which is where I didn't say that, that's where my theater was. And I fell in love with the show, and I drove up, convinced the playwright and he wanted me to do it, to give it its New York premiere. It was a 140-seat house. It sold out for 4 months. It got rave reviews, and then there was a move to move it to Broadway. To move it to Broadway, we shot 2 performances with 2 cameras. It's kind of a 4-camera shoot. But the Actors Union said, okay, the director can use that film to guide him, he was a male director, to move it to Broadway. Otherwise, then put it in a safe, bury it. Right. It's not allowed to see the light of day unless you sign massive contracts. You can never use these tapes. Right. 16 years later, with the cloud, Netflix and other things, sure, and also an enormous number of Jewish film festivals here in America, North America and Europe and the world, right, I thought, okay, I will try to get permission for just film festivals. If it grows, then we can maybe go and make a deal with any number of cloud services or one or something. Okay. It's the movie's 3 months. So what this was cut on a Macintosh from those 4 cameras. 2 shows, 2 cameras each.
Where else has it been shown so far?
Okay, I was going to bring the list.
Okay. Other film festivals?
It's in 35 festivals. 10 of them are opening nights, 7 of them are closing nights. It's won 6 audience awards. Not all festivals have audience awards where the audience votes. It's won every one it's been in that has an award. And it's been submitted for another 70. So it may be in 100 by the year's end. Oh. And then I will go to Netflix, Amazon, whoever, and say, here's this movie. It's a little unusual. Would you like it? About Golda Meir and her life. Yeah. And the nuclear option that arose in the 1973 Yom Kippur War.
How long will that be from now?
I think it's May. Look to autumn of 2020 at the earliest, but possibly after the new year in 2021 is my hope. That we'll have it in the cloud for all to see forever, ideally.
What I liked about it, as I mentioned, we talked earlier out on the red carpet, is that there haven't been movies that show Israel since the mid-'60s, 1960s, despite all the rumors that Jews control Hollywood.
Well, what it does have is being the words of Golda Meir. It was in some weird way adapted from her autobiography, but not very directly. So you've got the story. Let me actually do another analogy. Okay. So maybe the biggest Broadway show of the last 5 years has been Hamilton. Okay. So is it just because Hamilton's life is interesting, or Lin-Manuel Miranda's a genius, or is it because Hamilton was there with George Washington writing the Constitution? I mean, he was there at every point, so when you tell the story of Hamilton, you tell the story of America. Okay. So you kind of get 2 for 1. When you tell the story of Golda Meir, she was there at every major developing point of the state of Israel. So you get the life of Golda Meir, but you get the story of the Jews of the last century. So that's what's so unusual about it. Yeah. The play, the fact that it just made barely a movie. I mean, I say barely a movie because it's a film of a play, so you could dismiss it. Oh, it's a film of a play. It's not a real movie. But it works. It's very cinematic. So it's a movie that tells the story of the Jews of the last century under the guise of being a film about Golda Meir. The way it does that is because the woman behind us is a genius, the one in the red dress. She...
Definitely not the one in the black blouse.
I guess not. Here's a story for your viewers. This is an exclusive. I first offered the role to B. Arthur, who was a famous TV star in the 70s, Maude. She made us wait a month and then said, and she was the most famous person I thought could do it and sell out, but she said no. And I offered it to Diane Wiest, who won 2 Oscars with Woody Allen. And she considered it very long also for about another month. And right about this time, I said, boy, I'd love to try Tova Feldshuh. I'd always been a fan. And at the same time, her agent called me, right at the same, as Diane Wiest was saying no. And so it was meant to be. And I'm a lucky son of a bitch. Can I say that?
It's online. You can go much further.
Okay. Oh, I won't. I'm so lucky as a producer to have had Tova, to have had the director, Scott Schwartz, who is just a great director, and the writer. He wrote The Miracle Worker. So it's deceptively a brilliant text. You're dazzled by the performance and the direction, and it's actually extremely well written. So I'm a lucky producer.
Yeah, it's a remarkable script, and I don't think the audience gave enough credit. Maybe it's because it's a Jewish crowd and everyone is looking at the actress.
I'll tell you this, though. I've been to 10 festivals of the 30 we're in so far, and this was as lively a crowd, or in the top 2, of all the ones I've been to. Certainly it's one of the largest, and I expect nothing less from closing night in Los Angeles.
Well, it isn't an Oscar crowd.
Yeah, there's some showbiz folks here, for sure.
But it's
a lot of Jews. They're going.
It's a Jewish film festival.
It's a Jewish film festival, so one would conclude without a lot of guesswork.
Yeah. People are looking for home movies here.
Now, if there was a Maltese,
this was a great home movie.
If there was a Maltese film festival, there might be more Maltese in the audience than otherwise. But so, yeah.
What does this? And again, I know William Gibson wrote it. Did he rewrite it after she got to Broadway?
So, no. The story you heard pieces of the story, but here's the story. When Golda was still alive, but had retired, she came to America, and a lot of her people said, "Let us do a Broadway show about you." She says, "Oh, okay." I think she was resigned, but she wasn't keen on it, and they selected William Gibson, who had written The Miracle Worker. He had turned Helen Keller, he had made her more famous with a Broadway play, so they thought he was the guy. He wrote a 40-actor play starring Anne Bancroft, directed by the director of Bonnie and Clyde, Arthur Penn, a great American director. The play flopped. It was too busy. I'm pointing at the stage. It was too busy on the stage. 25 years later, he reads the article about Israel and its nuclear weaponry, and if that was what won the Yom Kippur War. He says he took the play off his shelf that had been a flop, and he rewrote it for Virtuoso, for one woman. And so all 40 characters are played by one person. And it has a climax with the nuclear war. So instead of being a vanity project that Golda didn't want but was done anyway while she was alive, long after she was dead, he did it as a one-man show, one-woman show, and it's still alive. I mean, that sounds like a horror film. It's not. It was a big hit on Broadway. It's now fading into memory. Now, with this film, it's been captured, so I'm happy about that. And with Jewish film festivals to help it grow to some point that it goes in the cloud.
So if it doesn't get beyond festivals until autumn of 2020, which is essentially the election time, it might not necessarily help the public understand what the ethos of Israel is in time to help to.
I think it's not a question of in time. I think Israel's always been going from crisis to crisis in a continuous manner from before it even declared independence. So.
It's been foisted on them.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Let me say this. When one builds the marketing of a project that some explode out of the gate and become immediate smashes, and some have to build. You build their PR presence. If you go through film festivals for a year, you try to win as many awards and kudos as you can, and then go higher. So I have to do that. I have to nurture it so it grows from a child to an adolescent to a full-blown adult. Is that what I meant to say? Yeah. So I think it'll help. I'm dying for it to go to Jewish film festivals. I'm sorry, to Israeli film festivals. There's 3 big ones, and we are submitting to all of them.
In the U.S.?
In Israel.
Oh, in
Later in the
Israel.
summer and autumn. Apart from what's here, I also want it to be a big hit, ideally.
Dubbed, subtitled?
We're doing the Hebrew subtitles literally right now, here in May. It's being translated in Israel. It's been timed. I don't know if you know how subtitles pop on and off. That's actually
Sure.
That's a real art. Not that I did, but I worked with the people in New York who do it, and now there are some people in Israel who are translating it, so we can put the Hebrew subtitles on it. Because I assume we're going to Israel with this film.
Would you characterize what the play, or the movie in this case, what it says about what the leadership in Israel has to go through, the kinds of decision-making processes?
Let me say one thing I think your viewers will find interesting, and then I can, if that doesn't answer the question, you tell me. So you know how Tom Brokaw referred to the greatest generation? Do you remember that phrase? He wrote a book.
Referring to the World War II generation.
Exactly. My father, amongst others. He was a paratrooper. I recently heard, I can't remember who, on a Jewish television network called JBS. I don't know if you know it.
Of course, yeah.
And somebody was being interviewed by the chief of that network, who said, actually, I think the greatest generation, not to discount the ones who fought World War II, are the ones who survived the Holocaust and built the state of Israel. And I thought about that, and I said, yeah, that's the greatest feat in centuries, for a people to be almost annihilated and then to do what they did. It's astounding. So if you go back to Ben Gurion and all of the people before and around his period, all the leaders that have followed, great ones, mediocre ones, Rabin was a great one, Peres was a great leader, even Begin in his way had a great moment in the sun. The leaders have always faced enormous challenges to keep the original creation of the state, that miracle, alive. And it continues to be front page news, week in, year out, forever. And here we are talking about it.
Would you describe, for someone who hasn't seen the film, who might be intrigued to see it at some point, as you say, this interview will live on, even though, right, it's the 5th month of 2019, and people will watch this for years to come.
Are you on Google as a channel? I'm sorry,
On YouTube.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Over 2,000 clips.
Nice. Okay, great. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
The question was, what I think the film does, that the play did, but film's different because film lives forever. People, did I see that play? How do I see that play? Now, sometimes plays are filmed. This one now is. So what I would say...
And thank goodness you did it.
Me with the help of a bunch of folks. Again, it's. I don't think it would be seeing the light of day without really a virtuosic performance by Tova Feldshuh, the actress, who's the sole actor and star. What you tell people who... what they'll get from the film, I think that was your question, is that you're going to get an extremely unsentimental, unapologetic, strongly pro-Israel dramatization of the history of the Jews of the last century and a half. What happened? What? Why is this what? Under the guise, in the form of a very strong theatrical work of art. So it's easy to digest. So it's not a piece of history, which might have told the same story. It's a very cinematic film of a play. It's very educational in that way, but like a spoonful of sugar or something, helps the medicine. You get a great historical story in a highly entertaining, highly artistic way. That's what I think is its appeal. I think that was your question.
It reveals the politics of the region, and it's a global politics. U.S. against Russia was a big aspect of it with Nixon.
Absolutely. I mean, but in some ways, Israel affects the entire planet. If you're one of the key foci the plural focus of the twin superpowers. I know China is, but back then certainly. And Israel and the Mideast and oil, all of it was like this is a central focus. But also this whole, from the Holocaust to the birth of a state, that's one of the great stories of mankind in some ways. So I agree with you about, yes, it's revelatory for the snapshot of what's going on politically in the world. But I also think it tells one of the great stories in the history of mankind, womankind, which is that a population, oddly enough, with one of the world's oldest religions, that feels like a family even when they haven't met, and sometimes when they meet it feels like a family. It's a very odd thing to be Jewish. And that they would have been almost annihilated and come back and birth a state in their original home 2,000 years ago. That's a if you don't think it's a miracle, it's at least a crazy ass story. How did you know? That's fiction. That didn't happen, but it did. So not many films tell that whole story or tell it well. Somehow this little movie sort of does. I think. I hope.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is its enduring value.
And today happens to be the 71st anniversary of the independence of Israel.
That's right. What is it? Yom HaMatzua? I don't know.
Ha'atzmaut.
You're a better Jew than me, fella.
Well, you lived in Israel.
I did.
So we're only weeks past the 40th anniversary of the signing of the Camp David Accords.
We are also 45 years. We're in the year that is the 45th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, too. Is that right? 73, 83?
It would have been
13, 40.
2018, wouldn't it?
You have to go back October 2018 to October 2019. That year is the year that is the 45th anniversary.
Good, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So,
I mean, I edited it.
You've come into your...
Yeah, I edited it in October and finished it in November and started sending it out, fixed the print. It was around January 1, 2019. Brand new movie. Golda's Balcony, the film. It's on Wikipedia, and it's at goldasbalcony.org. You'll see all the stuff about it there. I don't think that website I'll ever take it down.
No, good.
Okay.
Good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the
Thanks for
explanation.
doing this great channel, which I can't wait to see more clips from.
I think you'll like it.
Okay.